how they're breathing. So the tidal swing in esophageal pressure is used as an index for respiratory effort. So the bigger the swing, the harder someone is working, which makes sense, the more negative the pressure. Studies are showing that actually this is more correlated to patients who fail a breathing trial than F over VT, which makes sense, right? F over VT is just rest rate times or divided by tidal volume. Rest rate is driven by what? Could be neuro, it could be drive, it could be really anything. But this is showing you actual work from your patient, right? This is them actually changing their lung volume. So if they're working too hard, then they might fail when they're extubated. So, literature says that you want to keep the swing between 3 and 8 centimeters of water. The vent actually records the number. So if you look at it, this delta PS is the swing. So it's recording it always. So you can look at it when someone's in pressure support and see what the swings look like. And if it's greater than 8, that means your patient's working too hard. So maybe they need to increase pressure support, or maybe they need to stop the trial because they're working too hard, right? So again, they're just calculating it based on the swing and the esophageal pressure. So the bigger the swing, the bigger the number. And that would be unsafe, where this would probably be somewhere in the normal range. So not only that, you can detect asynchronies. So this is what it would look like if someone was completely sedated. This is what we were looking at before. The vent breath goes in, the pressure goes up in this pleural space. This is the opposite when someone's spontaneously breathing. They're generating negative pressure to have the breath happen. This patient here is triggering in pressure support, but that's all they're doing. They're not fully sustaining their breath, the whole breath of the pressure support. So here you can see they start to breathe, so they trigger the vent gives a breath, but then they basically just stop and the vent pushes in the breath. So this is the whole breath. So all they're doing is triggering and riding the pressure support. Here, they're breathing in for, actually this one is ineffective effort. So here they're breathing in and there's no corresponding breath that goes with it, right? So that's a missed breath, just like a NAVA would also detect that, right? Here, they're breathing in for this whole time that it's negative, so between these two lines, but the vent breath is cycling off here. So it's actually cycling off too early. They still want to breathe in. The TI is too short. So you can detect that with the esophageal balloon as well. And then lastly, they have breath stacking. So the patient delivers, or the vent delivers the breath, the pressure goes up in the esophageal pressure, but then the patient kind of gets stimulated and wants to breathe. So they take a breath, and then that's what causes the next breath to go in. So you can see when a breath stack happens, what is actually going on. Well, it's the patient breathing in this case. It's not just an auto trigger or extended breath. It's not an extended breath. It's them triggering in the middle of the last breath here. So it's just another way that we can use esophageal pressure. So you don't have to ignore it after the first day and they don't have to be sedated. It's another thing. Just like your P100 is showing you drive to breathe, this is showing you work of breathing too. So I thought that was cool. Yeah?
So if they're prone, is totally inaccurate, the breathing?
Good question. I actually asked one of our docs about this. So when you prone someone, it's not completely inaccurate, but you just have to know how to interpret the values. So you can still take your measurements, but now if you think about it, your heart is no longer pressing on your esophagus, so the pressures should be different. So instead of using like our transpulmonary cutoff of 25, transpulmonary plaque cutoff of 25, and a transpulmonary PEEP cutoff of 0 to 10, those cutoffs will be different because the pressures should be different based on what's pressing on the esophagus, if that makes sense. So I personally don't know what the number cutoffs are supposed to be. Someone who's studied it will, right? Someone who's studied the measurements when they're prone and supine will know. So it depends on which doc you have to be able to relate those questions.
We did it and we just took the value before and then after and used that to correlate it.
Like
The
then you
number
have a
before-
difference, right?
Pardon?
You would know the difference from what you started.
You know what the difference of what you
Yeah.
started with.
That's
Yeah.
how we did it.
Yeah, so that would
Makes
make
sense.
sense too. So what he's saying is like, if you take your plaques and your transpulmonary plat is 25, you flip them and the transpulmonary at is 28, then you know you have to increase your thresholds by 3, because that's the difference of having them platter supine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you at least have the starting point and then you just adjust.
Yeah. You just have to make sure that that happens quickly, like you do one right before you prone them and right after you prone them.
But can I go the opposite way, it'd be less?
Yep.
And
Or I don't know which way it went, but I'm just giving an example. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good point. So yes, this still would work, it's just different
Do you
structures
remember?
affecting.
Was it more prone or supine?
I wanna say it was 10 different, but I can't remember
Yeah.
Which direction?
which direction.
Good point.
I think less, I think it was less.
Prone? I would think so.
Because of the hard.
Like there's some